Okay. I'm going to talk about experimentations. I'm going to try and keep it to 5 minutes. Let's see if I can. It's going to be a challenge. Right. Okay. So what's experimenting? In 1000 Days Sober Experience, we talk about experimenting. So alcohol, we have this belief that alcohol is amazing, it's brilliant, it's fun, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and we really need it, and life is shit without it. So we say, well, experiment then. Go out to the pub with your mates, don't drink, and see how it feels. Watch people who are drinking while you're sober and see how it feels. So by experimenting when you're compos mentis, you can really understand what's going on rather than trying to experiment when you're blind drunk, right? However, I've noticed in a couple of instances with strivers that something happens at some point along the journey where they turn around and say, I want to experiment and drink. I want to drink to see if everything I've learned at 1000 Days Sober really works. And I think that is a problem. I think that it's a surefire sign that resistance is at work in some form or other. Okay. Now, as the strivers have communicated to me on this issue, the consensus seems to be that experimentation is a subjective experience. So for some people it may work. It may be the rubber stamp that you need to know that you've really grown, you've really gone past it, you know that alcohol has no value to you. But there's a flip side to that, which if you've done a really good job of putting resistance to sleep for a long period of time, and it's asleep like a dragon in The Hobbit, and then all of a sudden you wake it up, like a little sparrow starts pecking and Smog opens its eyes and starts roaring. It's not that much between you having your shit together and your shit going out of control. Okay, so I would definitely think about that. All right. The other thing I would think about is, how did your experimentation happen? Did it happen by you coming to Strive, for example, if you're a striver, and saying, hey, strivers, I just wanted to write a post about the possibility of experimenting. I've gone 50 days without drinking. I'm going to do a planned experiment. What do you think are the questions I should think and ponder upon before I go along on this experimentation? Do you think it's wise? Anything else you want to point out to me, or any blind spots? If you do that, it sounds like it's very coordinated, and it does sound like there's a lot of rationale and logic behind it. Whereas if you just go on to Strive and say, oh, last night I experimented and this is my results of my experiment, it feels a little bit more like we've given into resistance, right? We've given into resistance in that moment, and we framed it as an experiment. What I mean by that is, you've had the thought, oh, I wonder if I should drink alcohol now because it will give me this value. And then you've reacted to that and said, I will call it an experiment, rather than saying, okay, strivers, I want to do an experiment. I think the two are very different. So if you want to do an experiment, then think about it in a very deep way and seek help and advice before you do it. And Strive coach Lisa, she suggests you answer these questions before you experiment. Why am I experimenting with my sobriety? Am I hoping that I can now drink recreationally? And if so, what is that hope telling me? Am I still wanting alcohol to be a part of my life, and why? What do I think I'm missing in sobriety, and is that really true? And do I see sobriety as giving up something versus gaining something, right? So if you answer those questions before you experiment, then I think you're going to be on more solid footing. The other thing is, I think if you're going to experiment, you should have a time limit on it. So the stuck and a thought phase of the 1000 Days Sober Experience is where we tell you, if you want to drink, go ahead and drink, because we're not putting pressure on you to go 1000 days sober until after the thought exercise is finished. So that is a good time for you to experiment if you want to. I advise against it, but if you want to, that's when you should do it. But after that, and when you take your vow, part of not drinking is that vow. So I vowed to go 1000 days sober. Well, go 1000 days sober then. And if you want to experiment to see if you've got your shit together, do it after you've done 1000 days. But don't think about experimenting if your goal is 1000 days. As addicts, we lack integrity. Creating a goal to go 1000 days gives you some added integrity. Finally, alcoholism is an invisible, violent, and dominant belief system, and alcohol has no long-term value. And that is what we're educating people at 1000 days sober, so they can not drink alcohol and not be triggered. If you are thinking to yourself, I need to experiment, then the whole theory around alcoholism being an invisible, violent, and dominant belief system, and alcohol having no value to you, is not really gripping you. So then you have to say, what is the value here? Why do I feel the need to experiment right now? And don't think about your experimentation in a vacuum. Don't think last night I experimented and here were the results. Think back through time. How am I feeling? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling lonely? Am I feeling challenged? Is lockdown a real difficulty for me? Has this been going on for a long period of time? We might think we experimented last night, but really and truly, come on. We only drink alcohol because we want to shift our state of being. You know, we drink alcohol because we are unhappy about something. What is it that we're unhappy about? Okay, I didn't do 5 minutes. I did 5 minutes, 41 seconds. Well, I come pretty close. If you have tried experimentation or you've thought about experimentation, share your comments down below. And if you get any good luck stories with it, and if you get any doom stories with it, share your thoughts and opinions with people. Thank you very much for listening.